A black woman stands at the bathroom mirror on a Tuesday night with a jar in her hand. She has used it since she was 19. Her mother used it. Her aunt kept one in her purse. And the spot on her cheek is darker tonight than it was 2 years ago. So she puts on more. You have a shelf full of bottles. She had a dresser with 4 things on it. The first one carried mercury printed on its own label and was sold to black women in Atlanta for 100 years. 3 more are named on a table published by a United States government laboratory. One of those sits inside a criminal file in another country right now. And the last one was pulled off every shelf in America on a Wednesday in September. And not one letter went out to a single black household. That one is the one your mother had. So walk into a kitchen off Ferris Street in Jackson and meet Roxy Mayfield, an older black woman past her 70s with a face that never needed correcting. 7 jars that never made it onto that dresser, and 4 things that did. Go and get the jar out of your own bathroom. You are reading that label with me. But know this first, because it decides every jar on that shelf. A dark spot on black skin comes from one of 2 places, and they are opposites. Either the skin was hurt, and it healed by laying down too much color right on that spot, or something reached in and shut the color off in patches, and that kind does not come back. Every jar on this list does one of those 2 things. Stay with me. Number 7, Dr. Fred Palmer's Skin Whitener. We start in Atlanta because that is where this whole business started. Say the full name of that product out loud: Skin Whitener Tone and Bleach Cream. It went on sale in 1909, made by the Gallinol Company in Atlanta, named for a doctor whose patients came out of Atlanta's black community. An original tin sits in a university collection right now. Here is what is printed on it. Contains 3% pure white ammoniated mercury. Use sparingly. That is the tin. That is not a finding. That is not a lawsuit. That is the label, in the company's own words, on a jar sold to black women. That product is still sold today under the name Dr. Fred Summit. The mercury is gone. Hydroquinone took its place. Hydroquinone does not lift a spot off your skin. It goes into the cell that makes your color and interrupts the machine. The spot fades because the skin stopped making color there. That is why it works so fast on black skin, and why it was never meant to run for years. A short course, 12 weeks. Then a doctor looks at you. And here is where it becomes personal at that drugstore counter. Nobody put that on the box. It said apply twice daily. It did not say stop. The African-American grandmother buying that at the drugstore off Jefferson Street in Nashville followed the directions exactly as printed. She was not careless. She was obedient. 1 name, 2 chemicals, 117 years on black dressers, and the warning never got any clearer. Roxy Mayfield's dresser off Ferris Street never held a tin that had to explain itself. That box named itself right on the front. The next one was made in Memphis, sold to black women just as long, and it hid behind a softer word the whole time. Quick pause, 1 breath only. If these are the videos you sit with, the ones about the women in those kitchens on Auburn Avenue and Beale Street, tap subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it keeps this door open. Thank you kindly. Now, back to the countdown. Number 6, Nadinola, made by J. Strickland and Company out of Memphis. Skin fade for normal skin. Hydroquinone. If you are a black woman over 50, that box was in somebody's house on your street. Here is the year that should stop you with that box in your hand. 1975. That is when doctors began publishing it, and it was documented in black women and black men. In South Africa, in Britain, and here. The condition is called Ochronosis. Here is what is actually happening under black skin. Use hydroquinone long enough, on skin carrying a lot of color, and the skin does the opposite of what you paid for. It goes darker, blue-gray, then blue-black, thick, underneath the surface, in the exact spot you were treating. And on black skin, it is very hard to reverse. Often it does not reverse at all. So a black woman sees the spot going darker and decides the cream is not strong enough. So she uses more, which makes it darker. So she uses more. That loop has been running in black houses since before you were born. And here is where it becomes personal in a black woman's bathroom mirror. Nobody in that loop did one careless thing. You saw a spot getting worse and you treated it harder. That is what any sensible person does. Nobody ever told you there was a version of this where trying harder is the injury. Roxy Mayfield sat on a porch off Ferris Street with a bar of cocoa butter and never once asked her face to be another color. Those two were made here, in Atlanta and in Memphis for black women, and every woman on the block knew their names. The next four came in from somewhere else. 3 of them sit on a table published by a United States government laboratory. And then we come back home for number 1. Number 5, the Dr. Yanhee cream set. Not a jar, a set. Day cream, night cream, soap, sometimes a 4th. Same table. Tested in 2026. High mercury. Here is what is actually happening with that Dr. Yanhee set, and it is the part that catches people. A set is not sold as a product. It is sold as a routine. A jar you can stop. A routine you keep. Hold on to that word, routine. It explains why the jar at number 1 stayed in black bathrooms for 50 years. And here is where it becomes personal in a black bathroom. A black woman who buys a set is not careless. She is thorough. She followed the steps in order, and that is the whole problem. An African-American grandmother off Auburn Avenue in Atlanta had no steps at all. A bar of cocoa butter and a clean cloth. Roxy Mayfield had no routine to keep. She had a cloth, and she used it. That is 1 jar off that government table. The next one puts the word right on the front. Number 4, Deluxe Silken Bleaching Cream. That box tells you plain. Bleaching. No softer word offered. Same government table. Same year. High mercury. Here is the fact that should stop a black woman in that aisle cold. Under the law of this country, there are no approved, legally marketed, over-the-counter skin lightening products. None of them. One lightening drug is legal here. It is called Triluma, and it comes from a doctor. Everything else on that shelf is there because nobody has taken it off yet. And here is where it becomes personal for every black neighborhood in America. The Food and Drug Administration writes in its own guidance where these jars sit. Shops serving African, Caribbean, Latino, Asian, and Middle Eastern communities. That is the agency's own sentence. Its advice is to be wary of a handwritten label, a label not in English, or no label at all. That is the beauty supply on the corner in nearly every black neighborhood in America. And for an older black woman on Church Street in Nashville, that was the one store on her block carrying anything for her skin at all. Roxy Mayfield bought nothing for her face that could not be bought in daylight, off a shelf with a price on it. Now do one thing for me before we go on, because the next jar is the one sitting in a criminal file. Go to your bathroom and pick up whatever is on that shelf. Turn it over. Look on that label for 5 words. Mercurous chloride, calomel, mercuric, mercurio, or just the 2 letters HG. Put whatever is on that label in the comments. Just the words. We read every single one. And if you would rather listen the way you listen to somebody talking in a kitchen, we are on Spotify now. Same as everything we make. It comes out of the vault at blackgrandmasvault.com. Number 3, Goree Beauty Cream. Goree Beauty Cream and Goree Beauty Whitening Body Lotion. Regulators in India flagged those Goree jars for carrying mercury and lead beyond the permitted limits and opened a criminal investigation after a laboratory confirmed the metals were in there. Not a complaint about a jar, a laboratory, and a criminal file. Here is what is actually happening in that jar, and the lead is the part nobody talks about. Mercury shuts the color off. Lead does nothing at all for your skin. It is in there because of how it was made, and it does not leave the body either. Goree is no back alley product. It has a brand, a box, and it ships everywhere. And here is where it becomes personal at a Black woman's front door. A jar can be seized in one country and land on your doormat in this one the same week, because a parcel crossing a border does not carry another nation's court file with it. Nothing ever arrived at Roxy Mayfield's door off Ferris Street in a padded envelope. That is 3 jars off that shelf with metal in them. The next one has no metal at all. It only has a word, and the word is the whole trick. Number 2, Omni Gold Anti-Marks Cream Extra Brightening. Read that front panel. Anti-marks, extra brightening. That is the exact language a Black woman with a spot on her cheek is looking for. Since 2019, the Food and Drug Administration has tested these creams in its own laboratories and published the names. Omni Gold is on that table, tested in 2026. High mercury. Here is what is actually happening on that box, and it is not chemistry this time. It is the word. The agency says it flat out. These products are called bleaching, or fading, or evening, or brightening, or whitening. 5 words, 1 shelf. When bleaching stopped selling, it became fading. When fading got uncomfortable, it became evening. Now it is brightening. And here is where it becomes personal for a Black woman in that aisle. No Black woman in that aisle was confused about what she was buying. She needed a word she could say at the counter without it costing her something. An older Black woman in a shop off Dridie Street in New Orleans reached for brightening because it let her keep her dignity. Roxy Mayfield never once bought a word off the front of a box. That is 6. Now we come back to the Black bathroom we started in, because the last jar was in your mother's cabinet. It is the one you would defend if I said a word against it. And it has the strangest story on this whole list. Number 1, Ambi Fade Cream. Normal and oily. 50 years on Black dressers in this country. A few dollars a jar. And it worked. Every Black woman watching knows it worked. That is not in question, and I will not pretend otherwise. Then one day the shelf was empty, not restocking, gone. Here is what is actually happening, and it is written on Ambi's own website in their own words. In March of 2020, the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act was signed. The relief bill, the one about the pandemic, nothing in it mentioned a jar. Buried inside it was the Over-the-Counter Drug Monograph Reform Act, which finished a piece of business open since 2006, when the Food and Drug Administration first proposed pulling these creams off shelves. Hydroquinone was placed in Category 2, not generally recognized as safe and effective. Every jar with it in had 180 days, the 23rd of September, 2020, off every shelf. Ambi says it on their own site. Per the Food and Drug Administration, hydroquinone can no longer be sold over the counter and can only be prescribed by a board-certified dermatologist. Now go back to that word from number 5, routine. Ambi was never a jar you finished. It was the thing you kept, the way you kept your church shoes by the door. And here is where it becomes personal for every Black woman watching. And this is the whole video in one sentence. There was no recall. There was no letter. Nobody knocked on one door in one Black neighborhood in this country. The law changed inside a bill about a virus, and the only way a Black woman found out was that the shelf was empty. If you had that jar under your sink in 2020, it is very likely still under there. Go and look. Nothing on this list was ever hidden from the companies or from the agencies. All of it was hidden from the Black women buying it. Roxy Mayfield's dresser off Ferris Street never held a jar that a law had to come and take away. Now, the honest part, and I will always give it to a Black woman straight. Hydroquinone is not poison, and I will not tell you it is. Dermatologists still prescribe it. It still helps people, from a doctor who is looking at your face. What I am telling you is that it was never meant to sit on a Black woman's bathroom shelf for 11 years with nobody watching. And here is the part that should sit with you at that mirror. That same hydroquinone is barred or restricted in the European Union, in Japan, in Australia, and in Ghana, in Rwanda, in the Ivory Coast, in Tanzania, in South Africa, Black countries, on Black skin. African countries looked at what these creams were doing to African skin and moved first. This country got there in 2020 by accident, inside a bill about a virus. So an older Black woman in a shop off Central Avenue in Los Angeles in 1972 was not careless. She was reading a label written to tell her nothing. Now come to the other dresser. 4 things. Everyone is in the vault, and not one ever asked a Black woman to be another color. Number 4, the bottle of Dickinson's Witch Hazel. A few cents at the corner drugstore, and one bottle lasted Roxy Mayfield 4 months. Here is what that bottle does, and it goes straight back to the rule at the top. Most dark spots on Black skin are healing marks. A bump, a shaving nick, a patch that stayed angry too long. Skin carrying a lot of color answers inflammation by laying down more color right on the spot. Witch Hazel settles that skin down before it has anything to heal from. And here is the part almost nobody knows. A cotton ball drinks up most of the Witch Hazel before it reaches your face. Roxy Mayfield cut an old cotton pillowcase into squares and kept a folded stack beside the bottle. She pressed that square flat against her face and held it. 10 seconds to a section. She never wiped. Number 3, the honey spoon. On Auburn Avenue in Atlanta, Odessa May stirred 1 tablespoon of honey into her Saturday bath water with her hand, like she was finishing a recipe, because she was. And on a Saturday night, she cracked 1 egg, saved the white for Sunday breakfast, and kept the yolk. Yolk and honey whisked with a fork. A thin layer on a clean, dry face, clear of the eyes. 15 minutes, rinse lukewarm, patted dry, never rubbed. Here is why it belongs on a list about dark spots. Honey holds water against the skin and is naturally hostile to bacteria, which matters if your spots come up behind breakouts. Stop the breakout and you stop the mark it leaves. Her rule was 1 egg, once a week. More was not better. Better was regular. Number 2, the oat bundle in the stocking. In Treme, New Orleans, Saturday night was bath night, and bath night was sacred. Half a cup of plain rolled oats went into a clean, thin sock, knotted shut, held under the warm tap while the tub filled. The whole bath turned soft and milky. 15 minutes, squeezing that bundle over the arms and shoulders like a sponge. Oats calm skin that is inflamed and itching. And the spots on your arms, your chest, your back, the ones from a bump or a bite or a patch you scratched in your sleep, everyone started as inflammation. And the note that came with it is the whole trick. Pat dry, never rub, and seal it while the skin is still damp. Number 1, Palmer's cocoa butter, sealed on damp skin. The solid bar in the plain box, one kept by the bed and another by the bath. She warmed it between her palms until it softened and put it on while she was still damp from the tub, never on dry skin. Here is why that timing with the cocoa butter is the whole thing. Cocoa butter does not add water to your skin. It seals in the water already there. Put it on dry skin and you have sealed in nothing. Put it on damp skin and you have locked in a whole bath. Skin that is sealed does not crack. Skin that does not crack does not inflame. And skin that does not inflame does not lay down a new dark spot. That is the entire logic of that dresser. Not one of those 4 fades a mark. All 4 stop the next one from arriving. Roxy Mayfield off Ferris Street did nothing you cannot do this week. She just did less in the right order. One last honest thing about Black skin, because it belongs here. Every dark spot on Black skin gets darker in the sun. So you can do all 4 of these at night. And if you walk out uncovered at 2 in the afternoon, you hand it right back. Roxy Mayfield wore a wide-brim hat to church and tied a scarf for the market. That was shade, and shade is treatment. It is free, and it always was. And if the spots are spreading, or the skin is going thin, or you have been on something strong for years, go and see a dermatologist. Ochronosis is not something you fix in a kitchen. Caught early, there are things they can do. Caught late, there are fewer. Everything on that dresser is written out in the vault at blackgrandmasvault.com. The witch hazel square, the honey spoon and the Sunday yolk, the oat bundle, the cocoa butter and the damp skin rule. 150 across the 3 guides, each with the woman who kept it. So do 2 things at that bathroom shelf before you go. Tap subscribe, because next week we open the body lotion on that same black bathroom shelf. And what sits in there is worse than anything you heard today. You put it on far more of yourself, and you never rinse it off. Then tell me which of the 7 jars is in your house right now. Not the one you would like to say, the one you found on that shelf. And take that jar off the shelf this week. Leave it off for 8 weeks. Cocoa butter on damp skin at night. Shade in the day. Then come back and tell me what your face is doing. 1 jar, 8 weeks, 1 jar off that shelf. That is where all of it starts.